Welcome to church. Let's all stand. Turn your hymnals to song number 177. When I see the blood. On that first verse. Christ our Redeemer died on the cross, died for a sinner, paid all his due. All who receive him need never fear. Yes, we will pass over you. When I see the blood, when I see the blood, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Sinners Jesus can save, as he has promised, so will he do. Oh, sinner, hear him, trust in his word, then he will pass over you. When I see the blood, when I see the blood, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Judgment is coming, all will be there, who have rejected, who have refused. Oh, sinner, let Jesus in, then God will pass over you. When I see the blood, when I see the blood, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Oh, great compassion, oh, boundless love, Jesus hath power, Jesus is true. All who believe are saved from the storm. Oh, he will pass over you. When I see the blood, when I see the blood, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Great singing. You may be seated.
Amen. Well, good morning. Welcome to church. And it's good. Let's pray for Lucas. It sounds like he's not feeling well today. And that's never good. Announcements. Junior camp. It's coming up. 155. Get that in the offering as for marked as activity if you've got a junior camper that is going there. And again, we've got Miss Aaliyah and Pastor Matt, and hopefully Brother Nick will go as counselors. Other than that, really the big announcement is senior camp is Monday. Senior camp is Monday, which is, if you didn't know, tomorrow. I'm really saying that for my benefit, not yours, because it's like, what? And so I'm going to ask that everybody be in prayer. No, it has batteries. There we go.
No battery.
No, yeah, it's got batteries. All right, so yeah, be in prayer for sound for today. Be in prayer for senior camp. And so Wednesday night, I've asked Brother Nick to lead. Really, we're just going to have a prayer meeting. We're going to have a prayer meeting for camp. And for our campers and for other campers and for the preachers and for the counselors and everybody else. And so this is a big time. Anytime you get, honestly, whether you're an adult, whether you're a teen, whether you're a youngster, you get away from the normal routine and the world and everything else for a week, and you have let down your guard and allow God to speak to you through the preaching, and there's a lot of preaching, it's really, really good. And so we want to pray for that today and this week. Yeah, Brother Larry.
Do we have time for praise?
Amen. Yeah, what's praise?
My friend Scott went to church this morning.
Amen.
Florida.
Wow.
Answer to prayer. It's the Church of Christ.
Okay.
So, but his boss has been kind of staying after him. He had his hernia operations, and I think things are kind of, becoming more important to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had committed to go today, and if we could pray that it would get the right message.
Yeah.
There.
Amen.
That's what I've been praying for. But
Amen.
we talked on the phone for about an hour and a half. So.
Praise the Lord. We've been praying for that. And that is a praise indeed. Amen. Amen. Well, why don't we go ahead? Let's pass these out. We'll open up in prayer. And thank you, Brother Larry. And open up to Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. It's going to be where we're going to begin. Who can tell me what is in Exodus chapter 20? Kind of important. 10 Commandments. Yeah, Brother Jeff was there, but just didn't quite have the guts to say it like Aaliyah did. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Exodus chapter 20, the 10 Commandments. We're going to read that, we'll pray, and we'll begin. It's like a family morning this morning. It's good. Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. What are we going to look at today? We're going to look at Hinduism. So let's go ahead and pray. Lord, we thank you so much for our opportunity to come before you this morning, to worship you, to gather together as a church body. And Lord, that is an immense privilege. And I just want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the praise we heard from Scott and just the answer to prayer. And Lord, we do pray that he received a gospel message this morning. Lord, we pray that you'd be working on his heart. And Lord, we pray for his salvation. Pray for just this hour that you would help us understand maybe not a religious system maybe that we would be tempted to fall into, but where we may know a lot of people who are captivated by this, Lord, and help us to understand what it is that they may believe, that we could understand them better and minister to them better. Lord, we thank you. We ask that you would work, and we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so just by way, so I could know, how many people have colleagues, friends, or acquaintances that are Hindus? Really? Wow, okay, I would have thought more. My guess is if you work in tech in Bellevue area, you do, because this is very common. So let's look at what Hinduism is, at least from, again, a limited perspective. I'll give my caveat. Hinduism was actually fairly difficult to try and synthesize into one thing to present to this morning, and so you'll see maybe why as we go through it. And I kept the heading the same, and it's about the church, but of course this is not about a church. There is no Hindu church, as it were. There are different sects and things, but the pitch from kind of an amalgamation of several websites would be, in Hinduism, you are free to choose your beliefs and your path. That, as always, resonates with people around here. You have complete freedom to worship God according to your nature and disposition. You may choose the formless, highest God, or God with forms and aspects. You may worship your own self as your personal deity. And there may be many Hindus that disagree with that statement, but you may also worship numerous gods and goddesses and make offerings to them through rituals and sacrificial ceremonies. Hinduism is rightly defined as a way of life because it makes the very process of living and every action that you perform as part of a continuous worship and as an expression of surrender and devotion. Okay, life is a continuous cycle of rebirths with the ultimate goal to become one with God. What does that sound like? Life is a continuous cycle of rebirths. Buddhism, right? Which we looked at earlier. And you'll understand why kind of as we go through a little bit of the history of Hinduism. So, unlike, again, Mormonism, Christian Science, etc., really there's no clear start date to Hinduism. Many Hindus claim that it is the oldest religion on earth and call it the Sanatana Dharma, or the eternal way. But it did start to coalesce into some set of religious beliefs, if you will, in what they call the end of the Vedic period between 500 BC and 300 BC. And we'll go through a little bit of history. There is no founder, unlike Buddhism, since there is some relation there. There's no founder of Hinduism. It really is an amalgamation of beliefs. It's a mix of different beliefs and practices across the Indian subcontinent. Now, why is it important? 15.1% of the world's population is Hindu. That's huge, right? It's the third largest religion, right? Christianity, which again is a little bit of a misnomer because it includes Catholicism and everything that claims Christian. I think Mormons are included in there, etc. But you have Christianity as number 1, Islam as number 2, and Hinduism as number 3. So 15.1% of the world's population, with almost 80% of India's population being Hindu, and 0.7% of the U.S. population claiming Hinduism. And in our area, that number is going to be skewed, right? You're going to have a much higher percentage in our area that will claim Hinduism. Now, one of the reasons why defining what Hinduism is hard is because of multiplicity of beliefs or different beliefs that exist within Hinduism. And so there's no single creed, there's no standard set of beliefs within Hinduism. In fact, there are thousands of sects within Hinduism, right? Folks that believe specific things like exactly what would be a holy book, or the way of salvation or enlightenment, or which god they would hold up as highest, or what they would worship. So those are all kind of different within Hinduism. So some practicing Hindus, for example, do not claim to belong to a particular denomination or tradition at all. They're just Hindu. But the majority of Hindus do fit into a tradition that elevates one of their gods. Okay. Now, probably many people have heard that Hindus have millions of gods. I'm not sure whether that is actually true and how you get there. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But there is not typically, if you're Hindu, you're going to fall into one of 4 or 5 kind of traditions or denominations, which is a little bit of a misnomer, but categories of Hindu, which is going to elevate a god. Okay. Now, they're sometimes referred to as denominations of Hinduism, but really it's more of a tradition or a belief. And a notable feature, though, of Hindu denominations is that they do not deny other concepts of the divine or other concepts of deity, and often celebrate the other as a henotheistic equivalent. I define that word for you. Henotheistic. Henotheism is the worship of a single God, my God, while not denying the existence or possible existence of other gods. Okay? So I worship my God, and you can worship your God, and your God is still a God. It's henotheism. Now, that may sound weird, but that is this is normal course for Hinduism. Meaning there can be n number of gods, and I have mine. And you can have yours. And they may play nicely together, they may not, but it doesn't really matter. So this is a core aspect of Hinduism. So there are many gods, and depending on your tradition, etc., you may believe your God is primary, they may believe their God is primary, and many times my holy literature and your holy literature will have the gods interacting, etc. And for me, your God kind of pays homage to my God, and for you, my God pays homage to your God. It's kind of how it works. but they're all good. So let's look at a history and see how kind of Hinduism evolved. Now, 2300 to 1500 BC. It is old, okay? 2300 to 1500 BC, which is known as the pre-Vedic period. A very developed civilization dwells in the Indus Valley with its own religion and culture. This is kind of before anything we would know of as Hinduism. But they believe that this is the beginning of Hinduism, and the culture featured animism practiced by the natives who developed the cult of the goddess and the bull. Why is that interesting? Anybody who knows anything about India or Hinduism, why is the goddess of the bull interesting? Anybody? Maybe somebody who's worked there a little bit. No. Sacred cow. It is interesting. We'll get to a little bit about the Indians or Hindus' veneration of cows. But even before anything with Hinduism, there was an idea of the cult of the goddess and of the bull. Then later in 1500 BC, which is the start of the Vedic period, which would be the first real kind of Hindu period, or what would turn into it. And this was marked by the invasion of Aryan peoples coming from the steppes of Russia, Central Asia, and mixing with Persians, and which is super, this is an aside, but super interesting. They've now, a lot of the literature has changed this to, I think it's Indo-Persian or Indo-European peoples, but it's the Aryan peoples. And I had to do some research on this, because I'm like, Aryan? Like Nazi Germany? Aryan? And yeah, that's actually the word. And so some of the Germans and Europeans actually mistook this idea, because the Aryan was known as these were their conquerors, etc., which were, again, from Central Europe and Asia mixed with Iranian, Persian. And they took this as like a superior people group. And somehow it was from these people that the Germans developed this idea of this superior race, which, by the way, were not blonde-haired and blue-eyed. I mean, it just kind of blows your mind. But so these were called Aryan peoples. Now, people have kind of changed this so that they don't call them Aryan anymore, because that's somewhat offensive. But this is actually what they were prior to German philosophers and getting a hold of that. And so they came down, they invaded actually the much of India, and they brought their religion, which was known as Vedism. Now, between 1500 and 1200 BC, the Vedic period's greatest treasure, right, was produced, which was the Rig Veda. Okay, the Rig Veda, which is essentially 1,028 hymns to gods. And it's one of their sacred books. And it was done through a couple hundred years during this Vedic period. It's during the Vedic period that the intense polytheism of Hinduism underwent its great development. Polytheism, meaning there's many gods, right? And so here they have 1,028 hymns written to the gods. There's many gods, and those are kind of spawning over this time, and that would be the Vedic period. But another aspect of even modern Hindu life today came about during the Vedic period, which was the caste system. The caste system, the idea of classifying individuals into castes is vocational, meaning dependent on your job and what job you can get, and related to skin color. Isn't that interesting? I mean, through all of history, there's been racism basically based off of skin color. Even for, and again, and I don't understand why this is, but the lighter your skin is, the higher caste you'd be, and the darker your skin would be, the lower caste you'd be. So the Rig Veda, right, their hymns to gods, speaks of 5 social castes. The Brahmins, it's the highest caste, the priestly, scholarly caste. And I'm going to get some of these pronunciations wrong. Kshatriyas, the warrior soldier class, the Vaishyas, the agricultural merchant class, the Sudras, the peasant and servant caste, and then there is the Harayan, the outcasts or untouchables. How many have heard of the Indian untouchables, right? So those are the ones that were less than human, if you will. And over time, these castes underwent thousands of subdivisions, right? So, because we like to create striation. And the top of the social scale remains the Brahmins, while the very bottom is still the untouchables. And they were regarded as said, less than human and were treated as such, even though Mahatma Gandhi succeeded in enacting social reform to outlaw untouchability in 1949. Psychologically, spiritually, it is still embraced in many villages in India, especially in southern India, this idea that the caste system is still alive and well, and that there you are born into untouchability. And when we look at reincarnation, etc., you'll understand the mentality of it, because you must have been really bad in your previous lives. And so I have no sympathy for an untouchable, because they're there for a reason. It's a very, very vicious cycle. So then after the Vedic period, we see the Upanishad period, the 800 to 500 BC. This is the third period of Hindu history. It's the word Upanishad means literally to sit at the feet of. Now, it was during this time that there was a little bit of a rebellion against the Vedic period with its superhuman deities, and it was transformed in kind of more of a spiritual, otherworldly orientation. And so asceticism, what's asceticism? Because we talked about this a little bit even in our 1 Corinthians. Like an ascetic lifestyle. What? Sparse. Yeah, it's good. Like to deny yourself, right? Comforts of this life. So they focused on kind of asceticism, and then this is where the doctrine of reincarnation was developed. It was during this period, but also the rise of the teacher-student relationship, or the guru-disciple. You've heard of Indian gurus, right? They still exist today. You go to Microsoft, and on the kitchen pegboard, bulletin boards, you'll see guru such and such is coming to town. He's like in white flowy robes and long beard or something like that. So very much still in play today. This is where it actually came up during this period. And so this guru disciple kind of came out, and this idea that those released from the cycle of rebirth, moksha, same word we saw in Buddhism, instructed others in the disciplines necessary to undergo good karma in order to receive total enlightenment themselves. So if I receive total enlightenment, I'm a guru, and I am now giving that information to others. Okay, that's the idea, and that came out during this era. There was also a rebellion against the Vedic period, and this idea of really questioning authority came out here in the Upanishad period. So, and this is also the time that we saw devotees willingly forsook the authority of the Brahmins, right? The first class to follow a guru who would show the way out of rebirth, samsara. And now Gautama Buddha. Sounds familiar, right? Who's Gautama Buddha? The founder of Buddhism. Yeah, skinny Buddha. Yeah, he's not the fat Buddha, right? Fat Buddha is a Chinese monk. He's skinny Buddha statue. So Gautama Buddha actually came out during this period. So if you remember that lesson, right, he was looking at the system and the reincarnation and the caste system, and much of what he rebelled against, rightly so, was the caste system at this period. And so then he goes under his tree and has this enlightenment experience and creates this other offshoot, which is called Buddhism. Okay. And so there were many that were like that. His just happened to take off. And so we see in 600 BC, the belief in reincarnation develops. But Hinduism continues to move forward even though Buddhism develops. And 300 to 650, we see the worship of images, especially female divinities, becomes common. And so if you've seen anything to do with Hinduism, there's lots of iconography or pictures, kind of like Catholicism, where you've got all the saints and everything else. Many of their deities, have 4 arms or be blue or different things of that nature, and they'll worship the iconography. 200 BC to 280, the fourth era of Hindu history, which saw the Vedantic texts undergo revival. The Vedic period, Vedantic texts, okay? And then you get the Upanishad period, which is a little bit of a rebellion from that, and these gurus kind of pop up. And then this, where they go back to the Vedic texts, and the god Brahma rose to a place of supremacy over the lesser gods. However, a more significant god, Lord Krishna, one of the 10 incarnations of Vishnu, becomes the dominant deity of Hinduism. And maybe you'll see why this gets a little confusing, even for me. So, also the god Siva, or Shiva, the creator, preserver, destroyer of the universe, became the third most important deity referred to in Hindu lore at this time. And those continue today to kind of be the key gods. Now, 800 to 1800, most diverse period. This is where many of the sects kind of break off, and Islam becomes a major influencer in India. And so, what do we know about India and Pakistan? Right? There's a great divide between them. The biggest divide is one is Islam, one is Hindu. And they do not like each other. And both are nuclear powers. Wonderful. So, modernity. What's happening now? So many Hindu sects emerged, right, 800 to 1800. But most Hindus belong to one of four sects, which typically focus on bhakti, or devotion to one god. So here's the crazy thing. Lots and lots of gods. Yet most Hindus will have a higher devotion or see one God as supreme. Okay, but they don't all see the same God as supreme. So these sects are Vaishnavism, those who worship Vishnu as that supreme God. Shaivism or Shivism, those who worship Shiva. Shaktism, worship the great goddess Devi. And Smartism, rather than focusing on a particular god, it's made up of mostly upper-class Hindus who study the Smriti, or remembered texts, and they worship 5 major deities, including Surya, the sun god. But those are the core, if you will, denominations, traditions of Hinduism that you'll find today. Even though there's many sects, and I think, if I remember right, it was like in the 70s or 80% of Hindus that are going to be Vaishnavites, those that worship Vishnu. Okay? So what are the holy books or sources of authority? So we go through that. History. Why did I spend time going through history? Because through that history, you can see this truly, what is this amalgamation and creation of beliefs that kind of stack on top of each other, that get us to a system that is not creedal, that is not uniform, etc., that people believe today. Okay? So holy books, Hindu scriptures were collected over hundreds of years, beginning with the writing of the oral traditions known as the Vedas. Vedas means wisdom, the wisdom. And where did the Vedas come from? The Vedic period, right? And it started as oral tradition. Okay? And so Hindus believe that the texts were received by scholars directly from God and passed on to the next generations by word of mouth. And so sometimes these texts are referred to as Shruti, which means hearing, right? Because they were oral, you heard them, and then they wrote them down. The Vedas are made of 4 compositions, and then each of these 4 are made into 4, but I didn't go into the details. And so we have the Smahitas. I'm not saying this right. I'm sure I'm not saying this right. But they're the most ancient part of the Vedas, consisting of hymns and praise to God, right, including the Rig Veda. What is the Rig Veda? We said it's the 1,028 hymns to God, very, very holy book for them. The Brahmanas are rituals and prayers to guide the priests in their duties. This is the same time we saw the Brahmin caste come into play, which is the highest caste. The Aranyakas concern worship and meditation, and the Upanishads, consisting of the mystical philosophical teachings of Hinduism. Now, the general assumptions in the Upanishads include a belief in pantheism, karmic retribution, and reincarnation, okay? Which is where they get this, and they'll study those texts. The most well-known section of the Vedas is the Hindu epic called the Bhagavad Gita. Has anybody heard of that? Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, so It tells the story. So it is we would consider it a fable, right? I think they wouldn't. I think they consider it a story or an account. It tells the story of a warrior prince, Arjuna, and his charioteer, Krishna, who is actually the disguised incarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu. And so it goes through, and many of their stories are moral accounts. And I've given this illustration before, but when one of my colleagues at Microsoft didn't exactly like how I was running a project, he gave me the example of, and I forget the name of the monkey god, but the monkey god in one of their stories, his tail was lit on fire, and apparently he was very large. And because his tail was lit on fire, he was running throughout the village trying to get his tail to not be on fire, and in doing so, right, burned the entire village down. Now, I guess the moral of the story is, don't live in that village, or don't light your tail on fire, or something of that nature. Obviously, he was trying to impart that I was running around like a little crazy. But regardless of that, the idea is there's these supernatural gods, right, and there are morals to learn from them, and that's probably what we would take. But they actually believe that these were accounts and that they were incarnations of their gods. So we look at the Bhagavad Gita. So let's look at the key beliefs. God. We would say, that there is one God, but there is no single Hindu idea of God. Hindu concepts of deity can include any of the following. And so monism. Monism is all existence is one substance. So we're going to get into some technical kind of theological terms here, which we're going to define. So, and this is, a Hindu could believe any one of these things. All existence is one substance. Like, we're literally all one. You've heard like, oh, we're all one. No, this is like everything, all matter is of God. Okay, monism. Pantheism. Reality is identical with divinity, or that all things compose an all-encompassing immanent God. God is in everything. Pantheism. Okay? Panentheism sounds kind of the same, but God is in creation, like pantheism, and as a soul is in a body, meaning he exists outside of creation as well, and God is greater than the universe. Right? The difference between pantheism and panentheism says God is encompassed in all matter, if you will. He's in everything. Panentheism says he's also that, but he is above that as well. Animism is what we saw the early Aryan race, right? Pre-Hinduism were animists. God or gods live in non-human objects such as trees, rocks, animals, etc. That'd be the cult of the bull that we saw. Animism. Polytheism simply means there are many gods. And that we saw the rise of polytheism in the Vedic period. Henotheism, which we already defined, is where one God we worship among the many gods that exist. And so you can be polytheistic and henotheistic. I believe there are many gods, and I worship one of them, okay, which would be the Vaishnavites, right? Those that worship Vishnu as the high God, but they believe that there are other gods. And then monotheism. There is only one God. Everything that claims deity beyond the one true God is false. And you can find, Nick's like, yeah. You can find any or maybe multiple beliefs, right, if you poll Hindus in any of those categories. Now, Christianity, right, is purely monotheistic, as well as Judaism, as well as Islam. But there is only one God. And so we're going to look at what the Bible says, I guess, after we cover all of this. So major gods in Hinduism. There's Brahman. Has anybody heard of Brahman? Okay, a couple. So Brahman is the creator God, who is the divine essence and a sort of spirit force that has no personal qualities, but which pervades everything in the universe. Now, it's hard to get definitions because how we define each of these gods is going to depend upon what tradition you come from. So they all kind of, if you're a Vaishnavite, if you believe that Vishnu is the high god, then you're actually going to say Vishnu is Brahma. So this is where it gets super, super confusing. But for those that believe in the Trimurti, this is kind of the definition that we're using. And we'll get to what the Trimurti is. So he's the creator god, but he's impersonal. It's a force. He's the highest god, but in pure form is impersonal, has no personal characteristics. All right? It's like this force maybe that Buddhism would have said was God. Then there's Vishnu, the preserver god. In Vaishnavism, Vishnu is identical, as I said, to Brahman. He is supreme, but he is the preserver, protector for the Trimurti. Whenever the world is threatened with evil, chaos, or destructive forces, it's Vishnu who would come to protect it. And in the Hindu triad, Trimurti, he exists with Brahma and Shiva. Now, what's really interesting is this Trimurti is a triad of three gods. Does that sound any like? And so not all Hindus believe in the Trimurti. Some, just like I said, hold Vishnu alone as highest. But they would say that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are all part of the creator, preserver, and destroyer gods. But they are separate gods. But nonetheless, it's interesting to see some aspect of a trinity there. Okay, and so the last part of that triad would be Shiva, the destroyer god. You always need a good destroyer god. Shiva is known as destroyer within the Trimurti and the Hindu trinity that includes Brahma and Vishnu. In Shaivism tradition, Shiva is the one supreme being who creates, protects, transforms the universe. So here's what's interesting. If you are a Vaishnavite and you hold up Vishnu, he's the one supreme being that creates, upholds, protects. If you are Brahman, he's the one supreme being that upholds, protects, right? If you are a Shivite, Shiva is the one supreme being that does all of those. And what I said, so if you're a Vaishnavite and your literature is going to show Shiva bowing down to Vishnu. If you're a Shivite, your literature shows Vishnu giving obeisance to Shiva. And so, you may believe Brahman has a form. You may not believe Brahman has a form. It really is kind of up to whatever group that you decide to kind of worship with and hang your hat on, if you will. There is no one way. But they do believe in incarnations of their gods. Yeah, Jeff.
So do Hindus and Muslims don't get along, don't like each other?
Right.
Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Christians, kind of like, is there a conflict from one Hinduism to another? Like, do they
That's a great question.
yell and shout at each other and live in different, if you will?
I don't, to tell you the truth, I don't know. I know, obviously, between Hinduism and other religions, they're going after it pretty good. But as far as sex, I'm not sure. Now, I did say like 80, I think the number was 70 to 80% were Vaishnavites, so they hold Vishnu up. But even, I'm guessing, within that, probably temple to temple, there's probably a bit of variance. And so if you and I both believe that Vishnu is a god, but you hold him as the super high god, and I just think that he's a god, we're probably going to be okay, but I don't know. That's an interesting question that I don't know the answer to.
At the beginning, when it's like everything's great, unless you're Brother Moses.
Yeah.
Trying to do your Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and there are different views on Christianity as well. So we'll kind of get into that. But so Hindu gods provide incarnations, right? They claim that Vishnu was and will intervene in human history with divine incarnations, and these god men are known as avatars. Avatars, like the little things, the cartoon character of yourself, and it's kind of the same deal. That's probably where they got the name. It's an incarnation of a god that sits in a holy place. Like Krishna was an incarnation of Vishnu. Like some believe Jesus Christ was an incarnation of like Vishnu. Okay, so this is how we can believe that we can be inclusive in our beliefs, because some Hindus, not all, but some Hindus believe that many of the religious leaders, right, were simply incarnations of one or different Hindu gods. So what does the Bible say? Clearly, what we started off with, Exodus 23. There is one God, right? We can talk about pantheism, panentheism, and animism, and all these other things, but monotheism is what the Bible describes, and there is only one God. Deuteronomy 4:39 says, "Know therefore this day and consider it in thine heart that the Lord, He is God in heaven above and upon the earth beneath. There is none else." There is none else. Also, God is not an impersonal force like what they describe Brahman as, right? God loves. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. The impersonal forces do not love. God wills. Matthew 7:21, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Okay? You know, idols have no deity and are not real. Idols are not real. Psalm 135, I love this, 15 through 18. The idols of the heathen are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. And we're going to look at this next hour too. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Neither is there any breath in their mouths. They that make them are like unto them. So is everyone that trusteth in them. The Bible's funny. It is. You get what they're saying, right? One, idols aren't real. They're the work of men's hands. They're deaf, dumb, and stupid, right? I mean, and those who make them are similar, and those who trust in them are also similar. But idols are not real. And there is only one incarnation of God. And it was for the purpose of paying for your sin, right? And we looked at John 1 through 3. So, karma and samsara. This is going to be very, very similar to Buddhism, right? Fundamental in most Hindu sects, the idea of souls are eternal, accountable for their own actions throughout time. Karma refers to the debt of one's bad actions, which must be atoned for in order for one to escape samsara, which is the process or recurring process of reincarnation. And I'm not going to cover that because we already covered it in Buddhism. Salvation, there are three major paths to Hindu salvation. The karma marga, the way of disinterested action. I love this, right? Again, kind of like Buddhism, you can't be too attached. The bhakti marga, the way of devotion, and the jnana marga, the path of knowledge or mystical insight. All these methods, though, are dependent on the individual working to attain some level of being, either desire, devotion, or knowledge. And so it's what we can do. And then I added this because we looked at the very, very beginning of Hinduism, right? Was the pre-Vedic cult of the bull. And if we look at kind of how the Indian subcontinent kind of compressed these things together, and what do we find now in Hinduism but sacred cows? And this is just interesting kind of tidbit. But so you're probably familiar, but cows are venerated, and you can get in big trouble for injuring a cow in India. And so much so that they've got problems because cows are like roaming the streets, and they really can't do anything about it. And the origin of the veneration of the cow was traced back to that pre-Vedic period. Cattle had a major economic significance to this group of people, and that was reflected in their religion. And in ancient Hindu texts then, during this Vedic period, the cow appears as Kamdenu, or the divine cow. And the divine cow, which fulfills all desires and grants wishes. Its horns symbolize the gods, its four legs, the ancient Hindu scriptures, or the Vedas, and its udder, the four objectives of life, including material wealth, desire, righteousness, and salvation. All right, and so this continues today. And I've got many friends that, obviously they won't eat beef, but also they're very very astute, smart, successful business people, that like their ideal is to get a cow or two. And because, you can have milk and it's just, it was really interesting just sitting down and having a conversation with one of my friends and just their perspective on the cow. And so it is, in some cases they worship it, in some cases it's just venerated, but that's where it comes from, and that is a kind of core piece of Hinduism. So, summarize, and we'll be done. It's another Eastern religion with wide-ranging beliefs that is not consistent, but it's centered around man ending the cycle of rebirths by living a good life and pleasing his God. Okay, like every other religion, Hinduism is works-based and man-centered. Hinduism has experienced a revival, though, we heard this from Brother Moses, which is why I wanted to cover it this week, as it asserts itself against the influx of Islam. And this is seen through a broader sense of Hindu national identity. And so you wonder, why is it that the Modi government and the things that our missionary was talking about, why are they so fierce in that? Because they see themselves as protecting themselves against an influx of Islam, especially from the north, from Pakistan. And to do that, they've embraced and emboldened themselves around this Hindu national identity. They were, of course, ruled over by the British, and so you kind of that led to some level of Christianity being in the country, and there are multi-generational Christians there, which are being persecuted. But so Britain gets pushed out. And then Islam continues to try and assert itself. And so to combat all of that, it's this hardening and strengthening of nationalism and Hinduism combined together. And I think it's going to continue to be a very difficult place to serve and to give others the gospel. But we ought to do it. Now, questions for Hindus. Man, when discussing Christianity with a Hindu, the biggest challenge will be ensuring that they understand John 14:6. What's John 14:6? We memorized it? I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me, right? So that means henotheism, this idea of I can worship my God but believe your God as well. One of the biggest challenges is that they're struggling with that, where they could accept your God, Jesus Christ, but still worship Vishnu as supreme. Still worship Brahma as supreme, right? Or Shiva. And yet, in sincerity, believe what you're telling them. And if we're not careful, and they say, would you like to accept Jesus Christ? And they say yes, we need to make sure we understand where they're coming from, that they don't simply add Jesus to a pantheon of gods, but that they understand the exclusivity, right, that is needed in believing that he is the only true God. Yeah, Christelle.
Is reincarnation the excuse to uphold the caste system?
I think that is. I think that is the reason why, right, they don't feel,
They deserve it.
they don't feel any need to deal with the untouchables because they deserve it. Jeff.
Yeah, it's interesting though that in the Vedic period, so 1500 is when the Rig Veda
Yeah.
developed the caste system, but then they didn't actually
Do anything about it?
about anything about reincarnation until 600 BC. So
Right.
It's like 900 years later.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, maybe somebody realized like, hey, so why is the caste system here? How can we?
Well, I think, but that's, it's a great point, right? Because that just speaks to the nature of man, which we want to segregate people into those that we think, we're going to, that are good and those that aren't. And I think that reincarnation helped to justify, right, the idea of why we don't need to do anything. And if you're born as a Brahmin, life's good, right? Larry.
So, who determines when you become a guru? Do you decide yourself that you now have the enlightenment to be a guru, or?
Well, I mean, come on, Larry. If you've received enlightenment, you know.
Okay.
No, I mean, so if you look at, I'm being a little bit facetious, but if you look at Gautama Buddha, right? He proclaimed it. He had received it, And again, he splintered off of Hinduism and went into Buddhism. But nobody conferred it upon him. He claimed it. He was sitting under the Bodhi tree or whatever that was and received enlightenment. And so all you need to do is convince people that you are enlightened. We have some trees. Anna. No, they're sacred cows. It's any cow. Well, they have a name for the wish, what is it? It's kind of like the cow of blessing. Where is it? The Kamdenu, or the divine cow. Yeah. So it will grant your wishes. Yes.
Isn't that interesting that Bellevue, Bellevue Way, that Indian restaurant is moksha, and now we know that actually means release from the cycle of rebirth.
I didn't even put two and two together. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Moksha, released from samsara. Right? Yeah. You probably don't want to name your restaurant samsara. That would not be good. All right. Any other questions? All right. You got 8 minutes.